In this video, we're looking to see if Stanley Kubrick helped perpetrate a moon landing hoax, and did he leave hints in the movie The Shining? Did he want to tell people but couldn't? So we are going to take a look at some moon footage and then talk about the film techniques of that time, and then finally we're going to dive deep into the possible hints of The Shining.
Command override off. Engine arm off. 413 is in.
We copy you down, Eagle.
Listen, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Roger, Tranquility. We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot.
Are you ready? All set. Okay, you saw what difficulties I was having. I'll try to watch your bliss from underneath here.
It isn't real.
2001 was also an early pioneer of the front projection technique. A precursor to green screen, the technique enabled Kubrick to film the opening sequence on a soundstage using footage from Africa. In front projection, filmmakers project an image onto a two-way mirror, which reflects the image onto a screen made of Scotchlite, a reflective material also used to make movie screens. This wasn't actually the first film to use the technique, but 2001 certainly raised its profile. The technique really entered the mainstream a decade later when filmmakers used it to make Christopher Reeve's Superman fly. In recent years, CGI has largely replaced the method, but it's still occasionally used. The filmmakers of 2013's Oblivion used front projection to avoid the need for tedious green screen edits and to light the actors more accurately. Kubrick's attention to detail and the ingenuity of his special effects supervisors made a huge impact on the filmmakers that followed him, and the techniques they invented are still used today, or at least mimicked in digital form. And remarkably, the filmmaking breakthroughs of Kubrick and his team have aged just as well as everything else in his accurate depiction of outer space.
So this image here is one example of how Kubrick used the front screen projection in his movie 2001: Space Odyssey. And was that whole movie just a test or a rehearsal to get ready for the moon landing? I found some other photos of the moon landing, and I just picked them at random. And now that you have this knowledge, you can look at these photos and go out there and find them for yourself and do the same thing I did. And you can see where this front screen projection was used, but it wasn't used in all the shots. But a good handful of them. Go right to NASA's site and pull the images for yourself and see. So as we dive into hints that are left in the movie, one thing that really stands out is the parts of the movie that are different from the Stephen King novel seem to be where the hints are. For example, like with him talking to his wife discovers what he's really been working on. How do you have that conversation with your wife? And he says to his wife, he yells at her in an argument and says, "Don't you understand I have obligations to my employer?" Is Kubrick showing the frustrations that he has in his real life? The book originally had the room as 217, but Kubrick changed it to 237. According to common world beliefs, the moon averages a distance of 238,000 miles, but it does change in and out depending on the time of year. And of course, I have to make mention of all the unusual amount of placement of the product Tang. So let's take a look at a commercial of Tang from 1970.
With the success of the recent Apollo space flights, man has been brought another step closer to the moon. Aboard these manned Apollo flights, 3 astronauts, and with them, Tang. Tang, the energy breakfast drink with rich natural flavor and more vitamin C than orange juice. Still, Tang's biggest role isn't in NASA's space program. It's right here on Earth.
So here we see Danny playing on the floor in the same shape of the Apollo 11 launch pad with all the vehicles around him, and he's in the center. And as he stands up, you see that he's got the Apollo 11 rocket sweater on. And then later we see a box 39 in the freezer, and the NASA launch complex used for Apollo 11 was 39. So Danny's been wearing his Apollo 11 sweater, and he finally walks into room 237, which could represent the trip to the moon. But when he comes out of room 237, obviously something has happened. His sweater is torn. He's been roughed up. His mother demands to know what has happened, but Danny cannot speak. Does this represent Kubrick's feelings about the moon landing? As a slight digression, it's worth mentioning that the movie Capricorn 1 came out in 1977, and it's a movie about NASA faking a space mission. And I've already made a video of Buzz Aldrin talking about how the controversy that this movie stirred up, and that they used, and this is the interesting thing, why I'm tying it to this video, is they used all the Apollo 11 footage to make the movie Capricorn 1. So, what do you think? Was Stanley Kubrick involved in a possible moon landing hoax? Leave a comment below and let me know. I'd be curious to see what people think. So, as a bonus, there's this video by Imagine Dragons called On Top of the World, and I wanted to play the whole video here, but because of copyright issues I cannot. And it's got a lot of references to the moon landing and to the movie The Shining, and like this little boy dressed up like Danny, and on the back of his seat, I don't know what this says underneath here, but here's that one eye like the manipulators always use on everything. And the video's pretty neat. There he's dressed up like Danny. He's got a tinfoil hat on. It's kind of funny. And of course, there's that carpet. There's that pattern again. And the twins. And this is kind of neat. Shows them walking into a military base. And then when they get there, they put on their spacesuits. And then they show some old NASA footage, which is kind of cool. And then they show inside the studio where they're filming the moon landing. And this is where it just gets comical. There's an accident, and the boom mic hits the guy on the head. And then, of course, there's Richard Nixon is on the other side of the camera. He's loving it. And he's super excited. And this character, and this is why I made this bonus, this character is supposed to represent Stanley Kubrick. If you watch the whole video, you'll see where this is obviously supposed to represent Stanley Kubrick. They never say it's him, and of course, Stanley Kubrick was always had this look on his face. He's a bit of a perfectionist. And there he's upset about the accident that happens. And Richard Nixon, he doesn't care. He's fine with everything. Anyway, it's a lot of fun. I wish I could have played the video here, but if you're curious to see it, it's a cute little song. Imagine Dragons, On Top of the World.